Good morning, everyone. Well, we are back today on a bright Friday morning. Today's topic will be a bit different. Previously, we had spoken about English literature, especially on Shakespeare and tragedy. But today, we'll talk about English as a medium of communication, or the ways to develop and acquire English as a language, or to use it as a medium of instruction and as well as communication. So, let us first talk about Noam Chomsky. We all know who is Chomsky, right? So, according to him, human beings have a innate capacity. So when I'm talking about innate capacity, that means I'm talking about an innate or inborn capacity of an individual to acquire a language. So actually we cannot develop a language, we cannot learn a language, because it is not something like word meaning or making sentences or question answer by which we can just memorize the sentences or the memorize the particular instances of sentences from where we can communicate fluently. Actually it's not possible. It can only be done by acquiring a language. So acquiring a language and learning a language, they are completely two different things. But actually, me personally, I do not believe in learning a language, because rationally it's not possible. Okay, it's very much irrational when I say so. But acquiring a language, it means like to understand a language, to know how to use it verbally and use it for writing as well, right? So there's something called cognition, right? We need to understand what is cognition. See, when I'm speaking and when I'm giving a lecture, when I'm just bringing out certain demonstration or interpretation, there's something going on within my mind, right? So there's a spontaneous way of bringing out sentences one after another. See, simultaneously various methods of communications are coming up. So that is a process, and that process is called cognition or cognitive skill, right? So something is going on within my head or within my brain. So sentences are being formed and automatically it's coming out, right? That's the reason I'm making this video and you're being able to hear me or see me, right? So that cognition is very important. So see, when you speak in Bangla, similarly one sentence is coming after another, right? Spontaneously, it's coming rapidly. So you do not have any problem in forming sentences, but there is a process that is going on. Okay, within one process there's another process, right? That is what is called cognition, or we are talking about cognitive skill, right? So a systematic linear process is going on within your brain by which you form a sentence, right? So it's not that like I've memorized something, right? Or it's not that something I've said again and again and I'm saying it now. Okay, that is like you're memorizing it, right? You're learning it or you're mugging it, right? So but when I'm saying it's cognitive, or it's if I say it's cognition, or if I say cognitive skill is used here, in that case there's a process that is going on. Okay, but that is behind the scene, means that is going on within my brain. You can't see it, right? It's like a computer program. Okay, it's being executed automatically, and that is the way a language can be acquired. So again I'm saying language cannot be learned, rather it can be acquired. So when I'm saying acquiring, it means the way a sentence has to be used. Generally in linguistics or in the study of English language, I'm talking about English as a language here, so I'll not talk about other languages. But when it is English linguistics, that time we need to talk about two processes by which we can acquire a language. According to me, the two basic processes are called grammar translation method, or you say GTM, or you say communicative method, right? Or you say communicative skill, right? You see in most of the books of Bangladesh, actually we don't see it, rather we don't know even, because that is something very minute and minor, and they don't focus on it. The thing which I'm talking about is in most of the books, especially the English books, it's written that we have to follow communicative method of learning, okay, or communicative approach while acquiring the language or while using the language in the classrooms. That means at first we need to understand English is not a subject. English is a language. Like any other languages, it is also a language, and very popular language. But when this language is used as a course in the in the classrooms or in the curriculum, that time it becomes a subject, right? That means it becomes a medium. It becomes a medium for learning. That means it becomes a prescribed syllabus, right? For that syllabus we have curriculum, right? But actually it is not a subject, right? It is a language which becomes a course, and that time it becomes a part of a book, or it becomes a part of a syllabus. Then we sit for exams. in those books, especially of Bangladesh NCTB or national curriculum, you see after the preface part or the second page or the third page, you will see it is strictly mentioned that the teachers are supposed to follow communicative linguistic skill or communicative method of teaching by which students should understand how to acquire a language. And grammar translation method is very much different from communicative one, because in grammar translation method everything has to come in a systematic grammatical approach. That means students have to learn a language, or rather acquire a language or understand a language by using grammatical translation. Translations will be there for every sentence. From there you convert Bangla to English, right? But that is not the case in case of communicative method of teaching. In that, the teachers and the students, they communicate together, and in a systematic approach they understand how to bring about communication for daily basis, and as well as it will become a medium of instruction. The students who are learning today, even they can become teachers in the future days to come, right? So naturally, even for them, the method of instruction has to be English. So if the version is English, I'm talking about, if the version is Bangla, in that case English do not need to be, or English necessarily should not be a method of instruction. But when I'm talking about English, the method of instruction has to be solely English. So in those books it is written, or it is mentioned very strictly, that communicative method of teaching should be applied. But generally I believe due to the constraints of the timing, constraints of the syllabus, or constraints of the what to say, the situation of the students or circumstance of the students, we cannot find communicative language teaching to be used in the classroom. In that case, you see, generally it's the grammar translation method, because in a communicative environment, the teachers and the students, they both have to communicate. That means a coinciding environment has to be created by which the students can use the language, or acquire the language rather, so that that language becomes very, very easy for them. So you see, naturally the first language is Bangla, right? We are born as Bengali, we are born as Bengali, so we naturally have Bangla as our mother tongue, right? So when we are talking about English, we need to make it our second language, or it can be a secondary language for communication. That also can be an alternative for method of teaching, instruction, or communication. So we see, we use Bangla for a daily to daily conversation. We get up in the morning, we go to the toilet, we go for eating, then we go outside, whatever activities we do, use it in Bangla, right? Like we go anywhere, we talk in Bangla, like we speak in Bangla, right? Rather, so but that is the first language. So there's no harm in making the second language as English, right? So English is a very versatile language. From there, the communicative pattern widens up. The horizon will be widened, right? But that has to come out in a very systematic way. There are particular approaches, right? For example, Chomsky has said that human beings have an innate capacity. That means it's an inborn, installed capacity that cannot be purchased, or no one has to put it inside your head. You're born with that capacity to acquire a language. See, when you are a child, your father and mother, no one teaches you grammar, right? You understand Bangla's systematic way. People in Britain, or people in like American or English speaking countries, those children they are not brought up by being taught grammar every day, right? They know the language naturally. So similarly, when you are a child, your father and mother is teaching you language without using grammar translation, or they're not teaching you what is karok, sandhi, or bakya parivartan, all this sort of thing. Those things are not being taught out there, right? But naturally you learn the language from your father and mother. How to call baba or abba, you say ma, then chacha, chachi, uncle, whatever you say, you learn it from your parents. Okay, that do not come in a learning and writing procedure, but that just comes automatically. And that is what is the innate capacity. Okay, that is what Chomsky has pointed out, that human beings have those innate capacity to acquire a language naturally. It's a natural process, but there has to be proper guidelines, and there has to be a proper instructor. So in your case, when you're a child, when you're a very infant age, when I'm talking about an infant age, or when you're very young, in those circumstances, you don't have a private tutor to teach you Bangla, right? No one is happening. So that is not the case. Rather, the child is learning the language automatically. That means the parents are just saying, Abba, Amma. From there, from time to time, what are the things you need to say? Okay, when I go to washroom, I need to tell my mom, okay, that I need to go to the toilet. Or when I need to go to play, I need to tell, or I need to insist my parents, okay, let me play, or let me eat. So those are the things that come out with, a communicative skill. So here, your teacher is your father and mother, or your family members, who teach you how to bring about those sentences automatically. That do not happen in a day, but it goes on in a process. It's a method of, like, it's a method of communication that comes with time. Okay, systematic way it comes on, and simultaneously slowly about the language as well, and you know how to communicate. So those things are coming with time. Okay, it's approaching you. Okay, so that is what is a communicative method of teaching. Like when you join a classroom, if the teacher starts communicating you using Bangla, in that case that is the worst example, or it's a bad setting, or a bad medium of instruction. Because why you say, because when you're teaching English, or when you're trying to teach students how to communicate in English, your method of instruction has to be English, because that will be good benchmark, or a good example, or there has to be a good instruction, so that the students understand it. Because if you use some other language which do not need to be acquired by the student, because when you use Bangla there is no help, because you already know that language. We need to know the language which you don't know, that is English in this case. So if your method of instruction or medium of communication is Bangla in that case, so the student has to convert that sentence from Bangla to English, and then they understand, and then they're acquiring it. Okay, so it becomes a little bit lengthy, it becomes haphazard, it do not go in a linear way. Okay, so that time the simultaneous process of cognition and communication that do not happen. Okay, so the first instance, or the first initiative should be, the teacher has to use English as the medium of instruction. That has to be the sole medium, right? And then the medium has to be English, and then you communicate slowly, right? You tell the students to come up with questions, then you ask the students to give answers, you communicate, you solve the problems, you bring about interpretation, you ask for explanation, you ask for answers, and then you see the communication becomes easier. The first thing, I as an individual, I believe it has to start from the basic communication. That means there are certain sentences which you use in Bangla, those sentences has to be used in English. That means when you are well equipped with a sentence, or well equipped with a language for your basic communication or daily conversation, and then it becomes very, very easy. Okay, and then you move on to a more complex method. Then you learn how to write properly, you use creative writing, directed writing. Those are the targeted instruction which has to come out with time. But in a communicative method of teaching, the teacher has to communicate in English, the students also have to participate, they both have to coincide and work hand in hand to use the language in a more sophisticated manner, so that the language is installed into the mind of the student without any problem. There has to be a cognitive approach. The cognition, or the method of cognition rather, will help you to interpret the language within your head or within your brain, and then slowly you'll be able to use the language the way you use it in Bangla. Okay, but that do not mean that you mug sentences, you learn sentences. And importance of writing should be highlighted by the teachers highly, because writing will help you to interpret the sentence in a more in a more sophisticated and nice way. It has to be clear, well interpreted. And if you write, you see, your eyes, your hand and your brain, they are all in one place. Okay, they work simultaneously to ensure that your skill of writing or your skill of interpretation becomes nice and well placed. So when you are writing, what you are doing, you are just communicating. So when you speak, you are communicating via your mouth. Okay, but when you are writing, you're communicating via your writing. You're trying to bring about information. Okay, you're expressing yourself. That is also a medium of communication. But in that case, it's writing. But generally, when I say, like when I'm speaking now, it's verbal interpretation. But when I write, it's something else. But here the coordination is taking place how? With your eyes. Your eyes are seeing what you're writing. It means you're watching it with your eyes. Your vision is helping you. Your optical nerve is working together with your hand. Your muscles are working. You're writing. And then your brain is bringing out your information. Your cerebrum and cerebellum of your brain is bringing out interpretation. Those three work together hand in hand. Rather, they work simultaneously to put out a proper information on the page. And then you write those things and it comes out nicely. Some people, they write very nice. Some people, they're not able to write nice. So that is matter of capacity. If you're capacious enough, your writing will be very good and you'll be of very high standard. The information will be well equipped. You will have a lot of information. It will be informative. Your explanatory skills will be highlighted. Whatever you're trying to express, that will come out very nicely. Okay, there will not be any immature sentences or sentences which will not have proper meaning or proper interpretation. So those things are are coming out with the art of writing, right? Art of writing will help you to bring out those information smoothly. Okay, so that has to come with the communicative skill. Okay, the students and teachers both need to participate. It should not be one-sided. The teacher will go on speaking, go on lecturing, the students will listen, but rather they will not be able to speak out something because they will be in a sort of uneasiness. They are not well equipped with the sentences. They are not having the cognition skill by which they can say the sentences or speak out rather. But that has to be provided by the teacher. The teacher has to be, the teachers will bring out more, confidence. They'll install confidence into the students so that they speak out. Okay, they speak up, and rather they use the language for communication. So with the communicative skill, the language will be, acquired by the students. It cannot be learned. It cannot be marked or memorized. Okay, it's not something you learn, you write down on the question paper or answer script. That do not come that way. It has to come in a method, okay, in a way, and that is what is called communicative language teaching, or you say it CLT. So communicative language teaching has been proved to be the best method of teaching. Okay, you cannot use grammar translation method here. You can use, because if it would not be successful, then that would not be also be a method of teaching. That is also well equipped. But when I'm talking about Bangladesh, or when I'm talking about Indian subcontinent or South Asia, rather, in those countries or in the circumstances where the students are staying now, for those circumstances, CLT is the best. That means communication will help you to acquire the language. That means you communicate, you use the language, you write using that language. It becomes easy, right? You don't need to memorize. Then slowly you will know how to ornament your sentence. That means the process of ornamentation. That means today you're writing simple sentences, tomorrow you write compound, and then you write complex. You know how to bring out versatility in the language. So when there is versatility in the language, diversity in the language, you know the language is well equipped now. That means you are now able to use that language fluently the way you use it in Bangla. Okay, that means a language is well justified here. Okay, the way you interpret and express your information in Bangla, the same has to happen in case of English, but that has to come with proper guidance. You look for proper instructors, proper teacher who can teach you the method of acquiring a language. It just cannot happen from any individual who can teach you language. It's not that someone will teach you active and passive voice, direct and indirect speech, you know how to use preposition. That is theoretical. You can learn a language, or you can acquire a language rather theoretically. But when I'm talking about communicative language teaching, it has to come in a proper approach. It has to come in a proper method. You communicate, you use the language, you express via that language, but slowly it has to happen. It cannot just happen in a day. You need a proper teacher who will instruct you, who will guide you. You take that instruction, you too try to communicate, and then slowly you see the language will be well justified. You will be able to use it as a method of conversation and communication. And in the future, if you want to be a teacher, your medium of instruction too will become English, right? So I hope you have understood, and we'll create more videos on this so that it becomes more easier. We'll talk about the importance of essays in the upcoming days. So if you like this video, if you think this video is interesting, if it is informative, please do subscribe and like. Okay, thank you.